Hello. We are in chapter 12. Okay, so real fast, I have an 11-year-old in the kitchen right now who is baking something with a friend. It's very possible my house might burn down during this video. I'm just kidding. It's not going to burn down, but if I get interrupted, I apologize. Um, all right, it's been a long day today. I had a few clients today in the office. I had someone this morning who initially presented because she's angry, but it's really a lot of grief that we're working through. She lost her brother. She's had a loss of a relationship, a significant relationship in her life. She's feeling very alone. So like the anger is like the overall like feeling, the emotion. There's a lot underlying that, and it comes down to a lot of grief. So we're working through that. I saw a couple today who need to work on communication and have very different love languages, right? So we're working on that. And I saw a client this afternoon. She has sexual trauma. And so I'm working with her on dealing with PTSD. So all of these clients have very different goals. And that is what we're talking about in chapter 12, developing goals and formulating a contract. So the big idea here is I want to feel better is not a workable treatment goal. That's like everybody just wants to feel better, of course. And it's our job to use all of the active listening skills we've been thinking about, we've been talking about, and the interviewing skills and the assessment skills, and now put them into goals. Okay, because from this stems the intervention. So number one, goals should come from assessment. So we have to use again those listening skills and all of those really helpful questions to engage the client and to better understand what it is we need to be working on. I copy and pasted a really good example of a treatment plan into this little Word document that I want to read to you all. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just want to highlight some goals that we're working on. So this client, it came to me for depression, and this one, the presenting problem that this person identified was grief and loss. And there were many losses in this person's life that have led to depression and discouragement. She is exhibiting strong emotional responses of sadness, especially when these losses are discussed. And she's done a lot of repression of the grief. She doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't want to look at pictures of this person, even though they were someone who was so special in her life. So a lot of very heightened emotional responses. And the loss happened several years ago, by the way. So it's an unresolved loss. It's somewhat complicated. This person's having changes in appetite and sleeping, and feelings of guilt as well, that not enough was done to help this person when they were alive. Also, this person lacks a positive support network due to a geographic move. So they've moved from California to Mississippi, and their village has now gotten very, very tiny. So, goal number one that we agreed upon after completion of the assessment and recognizing these are the core things we need to be focusing on in treatment. Number one, we have to begin a healthy grieving process around the loss. And of course, with goals comes objectives. Just to highlight a couple of the objectives underneath this goal, we're participating in therapy that addresses issues beyond grief, right, that has arisen as a result of the loss, and then a variety of interventions. So, assessing whether the client evidences a more severe clinical syndrome secondary to the loss, like depression, generalized anxiety, assessing for persistent complex bereavement. So, all of these are the interventions. We're not there yet. I just want to give you a picture. Several other objectives, like beginning to verbalize feelings associated with the loss, and then there's a variety of interventions under that, so on and so forth. Another goal, complete the process of letting go of the significant other. And then several objectives and interventions fall under that. So the objectives are the how are we doing that? It's under this goal, identifying and verbalizing positives about the deceased loved one, including previous positive experiences, asking the client, this is an intervention, to discuss or list those positive aspects or memories about the relationship. So for example, this particular person, the one that I'm talking about who represses the loss, I asked her for the next session to bring in a couple pictures that she has a hard time looking at but wants to look at them as a way to remember this loved one. And she just says, I just become so emotional, and then my kids are around, and it's very difficult. So I said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to get some pictures that are important to you and of this loved one, and I want you to just put them in an envelope, make it very matter of fact. Get the pictures, put them in an envelope, put it away, and let's pull them out when you come to session. So you don't have anything to do necessarily in terms of processing or remembering this person at home, because that's hard for you. So be very matter of fact, gather the photos. We're going to start the pulling out of this and processing of this together in therapy. So that's another intervention that we're going to start doing. Another objective under this goal is to re-engage in activities with family and friends. So we want to rebuild her social support network here in Mississippi. We want to find support systems for her that she can rely on, so she is not feeling so alone or isolated. Okay, another goal number 3, resolve the loss, re-engaging in old relationships, and initiating new contacts with others. Several objectives and interventions that fall under this. Okay, so you're kind of getting the point. So I've taken this big, huge assessment and I've broken them down into goals. Underneath the goal is the how are we going to do this, and then the intervention. All right. Okay, going back to goals. Goals should be collaborative. So remember, we are often going to work in a place where there's a template for goals, and sometimes we have to use those templates, but it's also okay to insert your own goals or goals of the clients that are not part of the template. We want to engage the client, and we have to build buy-in so that the client feels that they are part of this, this intervention process, this goal setting process. If we're just coming up with goals and they're not that of the client, then we're doing the client a disservice. Next, we want to translate vague hopes into observable changes. Okay, so here's an example. The client is saying, I just want to feel less anxious. That's really, really vague. So we have to go back to exploring, well, what does that mean for you? An example of doing that might be to say, well, what would you be doing differently if anxiety were not controlling your life? Like, let's say anxiety is gone. I have a magic wand. I've removed the anxiety. What would you be doing differently? Okay, that's going to help us to get a better picture of where they want to go, and we can goal set from there. Next, we want to break large goals into manageable steps. So when a client comes to us, they're often overwhelmed, and sometimes they sit in the intake and they just spill all this stuff, right? And it's overwhelming, and it's overbearing, and it's a lot, and it's stressful, and it's our job to break it down, right? Break it down into small manageable steps, right? So each thing they want to work on becomes a goal. And we want to remember that not everything is going to happen overnight, nor should it. So these goals are, some will be short term, some will be long term, but they're all part of the process. They're not going to happen right away, and that's okay. Finally, we want to create contracts that are clear. So our goals should create clarity for the client. We want to clarify at the end of this process the goals that we've all set together, the roles, who's going to do what the client will be responsible for, expectations. Some will come from you as the social worker and the accountability person, and some will come from the client in terms of what they expect from themselves, or maybe a support person they're going to work with to accomplish these goals. And we want to clarify the intervention. So we've got all these goals. Now what? What's the practice part? One thing to remember, a good goal helps both you and the client recognize whether change is actually occurring.